Thank you so much, and good morning. I'm intimidated by you all. Even though I bring all the good wishes from Jack personally to you, I still worry about, am I communicating well with you? I know no Polish, so I apologize to you all for that. And I hope that we have a few minutes to speak together and communicate a few ideas. And actually, there are 3 ideas, big ideas. And then I'd like to then bring you up to date a little bit about how we're bringing to the world together something called the science of where. Have you heard about that? To me, it's really interesting. It really describes what we do together. It is about bringing the science of geography that Jack talked about, this science that's all around us, and bringing it to life and putting it to work for all the good purposes that you do with GIS, the intersection of the science of geography and the technology of GIS. We call it the science of where. So GIS is advancing. I'm going to actually move to this other side here because now I have my notes down here. GIS is advancing. Jack talked about this, and so did Thomas. This whole Geo Revolution, what's powering that? It really is about a number of trends. First of all, data. Data is all around us in all different forms. We have scientific measurements. On the other side, we have crowdsourcing, all this social media coming at us rapid fire. We have real-time information of all types. We have accurate measurements of nearly every physical thing using LiDAR and other scanning technologies. And of course, everything comes to life in 3D in our world so we can relate to it. Imagery, drones, all these things that Tomac talked about already from a data standpoint. We also have computing infrastructure that's becoming more powerful, ubiquitous. Cloud computing, obviously, all around us. We all participate in that every day. Also, the idea of distributed computing, servers and desktops and mobile devices all working together in a way that's never been possible before. Of course, networks that connect everything up. And GIS is also taking major innovative steps. This actually makes something very interesting begin to be possible. GIS itself is expanding and being able to be applied in many different ways. On the web, through apps, and actually distributed anywhere at any time. So Jack mentioned this idea of WebGIS. WebGIS, this is a different pattern. This is something new, and it's actually helping everyone do their work better. It leverages web services, and it enables individuals, teams of people working together to solve problems, working across departments inside of organizations, and actually across organizations. And it allows us to share knowledge and collaborate. As Jack mentioned, this is something we really need to be able to solve problems more effectively. And the thing that's really interesting is we're seeing this grow very quickly. This idea of Tomac, which is this Geo Revolution. You know, in a way, all of you are part of it, and maybe you don't see it, but I have the good fortune of actually working around the world. My role as a corporate director at Esri, well, so far this year I've been to 56 countries. And I can tell you that this Geo Revolution, it's real. And it's actually being powered by this new innovative approach that we call WebGIS. So here's kind of a big idea, okay, which is that WebGIS actually simplifies and integrates all types of information. It allows us to work with imagery. It allows us to work with the traditional vector-type data. Everything comes to life in 3D. Also, the ability to merge in and deal with huge collections, billions of observations in big data, and also the ability to merge in this scanned information from LiDAR, and of course tie in tabular information from business systems. Part of the big idea here is that GIS is no longer about static information. GIS is actually powered by dynamic information, all of these measurements from all of these different sensors, billions of observations all being collected, and we can now tap into those data streams that are important to us and leverage it both from the natural environment and also from the built environment. It's sort of what underlies all the data feeds for smart cities. Okay, here's something else. It's about the apps, isn't it? Having data, that's one thing, but how do we actually use that? How do we actually create real value for the organizations that we're working with? How do we actually solve the problems that we have to solve? How do we actually apply analytics to the problem to bring real value? How do we link together things into important workflows that help us get our work done? It's through apps. That's what it's about. So WebGIS actually helps us have many different types of apps. We can have apps for the field. We can have apps that help us in the office to solve our business problems. Apps that help us design and sketch. Where's the best place for my retail store? Where's the best place for a hospital or a clinic? And of course, I need to be able to view all of this information in a seamless way. So we have apps for viewing. We also want to merge in not just the scientific information. We want to merge in and utilize social information. How are people feeling today? Well, where are problems that we have to resolve? There's a pothole in the street. There's a flood coming my way. I'm worried about it. I need to be rescued. Okay? All of this social information becomes part of this dynamic set of data that we talked about a minute ago. There's apps for telling our stories. This, to me, is one of the most significant types of applications. And I'd like you to actually, okay, as GIS professionals, you know how to use all these apps. But the one that actually extends and probably has the biggest impact are these story maps. tell the story about how things have to change. Tell the story about success that you or your agencies are having. Tell the stories about things that need to change. And then there's the way that we manage all this. There's apps for managers and dashboards, creating operational intelligence like we've never had before, all across any organization and beyond. Here's another big idea. Actually, Tomac began to talk about this, but it is actually what's at the heart of the Geo Revolution. And that is that being able to explore all this data takes smart maps. It's the way that we interact. It's the way that we learn. It's the way that we understand. And these smart maps actually are intelligent about the information and the data that is feeding them. So right from the start, when I open a map, it knows about the data that's underneath it. And it can create great and important looking information products that communicate the message much more effectively. And by the way, it's just easier to use, making it much simpler. So WebGIS is also revolutionizing how we plan and how we design. Many of you are working in local administration, and you know, actually, I see it's been 4 years since I was in Warsaw, and the whole city is very different from the last time I was here. It continues to grow and evolve. But how do we actually create cities and environments that are sustainable, that will support us as we continue to grow our population and become increasingly challenged? So this idea of geo-design is something that's very interesting. It allows us to take all of this information, to analyze it, to determine suitability, to be able to use those information products to sketch and design. Like Jack mentioned in his video, where's the best place for conservation? Where's the most appropriate place for different types of development, whether it's housing or retail or commercial or industrial? How does this all fit together in a sustainable fabric? Being able to evaluate then these different designs, being able to visualize it, being able to engage the public and other stakeholders in meaningful ways. And then being able to communicate to those that have to execute the plan. This is all very interesting. So this allows us to rapidly create and integrate all of this type of information into one interesting planning frame. So GIS and WebGIS in particular makes sort of this science of where more accessible, easier to use, and then advancing these analytics and geo-enabling the data science. Okay, data science, it's like the hottest new field. Okay, my daughter, she's interested in data. She's interested in studying things. And so this is actually an incredible new profession that's coming up. They don't really know about geography and the science of where. How does it actually help them? Well, this idea of spatial analytics, being able to do exploratory analytics, being able to tap into deep repositories of spatial and temporal information to look for patterns, and then putting it all together within a single analytical framework using great analytical services, and being able to script and automate using Python, and also integration of other analytical methods like R. Kind of interesting. All of a sudden, the science of where begins to take on a whole new meaning. Okay, here's one more big idea, is that WebGIS actually allows us to connect everyone. It's an interesting idea. This is the capability for us to share results, to engage all the right people in decision-making, to make them aware, actually, of the real situation that we have to deal with. So this actually supports communication, engagement of individuals, of organizations, and actually now extending out into entire communities to make them part of this fabric that we talked about. So let me talk a little bit more about this idea of community engagement. It's actually part of what's powering this Geo Revolution. People are aware. They actually want to contribute. They want their voices heard. This is a way to actually connect up governments with citizens or businesses and customers. So this idea is of this community GIS hub is actually to be able to advance policy initiatives. For example, in the city of Los Angeles, near where I live, and actually in other cities around the world, they have this initiative that they call Vision Zero. Vision Zero, what does that mean? That means 0 pedestrian deaths from traffic accidents. It's a big vision. Maybe not so easy to do. Okay, but how do you actually understand the problem? How do you actually begin to change behavior of those that are driving and those that are walking? How do I avoid the busy intersection? How do I know that people are going around maybe a pothole in the road that needs to be fixed? How do I know that there's a rocky place that people have to work around and it creates a hazard? Well, it actually is part of engaging everyone in this and analyzing all the data and then modifying both the physical environment and also the behavior and interactions of everyone. So this community hub actually is about improving communication. It's about interacting more effectively with the data. It's about reporting status. How are we actually doing? Are we making progress towards our goal? It's about telling the stories about success. And actually, it's fed by all of the authoritative content that you all are creating every day. So I hope you're actually beginning to get a sense that GIS is advancing to a whole new scale that was never possible before. Yes, we're going to continue to use GIS on our professional desktops. This is our favorite pattern. And of course, working with teams to help solve problems and work more efficiently. And working across departments, working as entire organizations in an enterprise way, and actually taking it one step further, which actually is working across organizations. So WebGIS actually becomes something very interesting, which is not just a system, but a system of systems beginning to connect everything in this digital and Geo Revolution. So it now means that GIS, yes, of course, helps us do our day-to-day work better. And for you, it gives you the framework to apply the science of where, and to do that much more broadly than we've ever been able to do before. I'd like to switch gears just a little bit now and talk about the work, our work at Esri, to actually create the useful technology to help support all of you in your missions. And what we're talking about here is ArcGIS, which is the product and the system that you use every day. So what is ArcGIS? Actually, it is it's a complete system. It's actually a platform, as we call it, for managing and applying geographic information. It is powered by distributed services and data. It can be deployed on your premises. It can be deployed in the cloud. It can be accessed as SaaS, software as a service, or in a hybrid way. You can actually mix and match to accomplish things in a whole different way. And this is an open platform, actually, that integrates all the different types of information that we talked about, and it's available through all different types of apps. So ArcGIS actually organizes and manages all aspects of the GIS. It helps manage data, information products, apps, predictive models, and also people. The identities of everybody are managed by ArcGIS. And so all of these are stored in an information model that helps us connect everything. It helps us share information where we need to. It helps us protect information when we need to. And it organizes it all in something we call a portal. As I mentioned, ArcGIS also supports multiple implementation patterns. Our favorite pattern as a GIS professional is the desktop. This idea of client-server that many of you are using to maintain your systems of record, meaning transactional updates of databases, like information about lands, information about my infrastructure or my power utility, information about people and customers, and then an enterprise and online deployment pattern, which actually allows us to turn this system of record into something new, a system of engagement, making all of this authoritative content available to everyone within the organization. And then this brand new pattern that I talked about, this idea of distributed GIS, connecting up organizations in new and interesting ways to create this system of systems pattern. And it's actually web services that allows us to interconnect everything. So what are the capabilities of ArcGIS that are really advancing? I'm going to talk about those briefly in this next set of slides. So first of all, it's content. We mentioned all of this data. There's a fundamental part of the platform. We call it the living atlas, meaning that it's taking real-time information, it's taking all the authoritative content, It's taking your content that you share and it's making it available for everyone that needs to be able to use it. So there's some ready-to-use information like administrative boundaries and base maps and imagery, and also some scientific information like weather and demographics coming from and submitted and shared by all of the statistical agencies from around the world. And then vegetation and land cover and so on coming in from satellite imagery every day. It's actually quite extraordinary. So in a sense, this living atlas is the largest single collection of geographic knowledge on the planet. And you all are creating it and participating in that. So of course, there's the data management and data compilation. So rolling out very soon is something that we call the utility network. It's actually a whole new way to be able to transactionally maintain very complex information about electric networks and telecom networks and water networks and gas networks. Also, the ability to merge in more effectively CAD information, and some work that we're doing actually with Autodesk to merge in BIM as part of all that, and improved editing in 2D and in 3D to make our editing workflows more efficient and streamlined, and also improve geocoding and location finding so we can actually extend all this information into the business world. GIS is also going in the field here. So ArcGIS is actually has a whole new set of capabilities for GIS in the field. It's actually a set of applications that are designed to work together. So first of all, there's something called Collector. It allows us to take geocentric workflows into the field and do inspections. We can also do more complex surveys with another application called Survey 123. It ends up being one of the most popular, these two together actually, are some of the most popular applications that we've ever created. So that means they're doing good work. Now, how do I actually know where I should go and what tasks I should do? So I have this other app called Workforce, where my supervisor can actually task me to go to the field to a specific place. But how do I find that place? There's another app that's linked. Actually, all of these applications are linked. So I get my task. I then can navigate to my task, the location where I'm supposed to inspect equipment. And then I can collect the information, and then I can report back, task completed. Ah, what's next? And I get my next work assignment. It's kind of interesting. And then I also have this other app for the field. It's kind of more generic, called Explorer. It's new. It allows me to mark up, send messages back, and work in a more dynamic and open way. So connecting up the field to the enterprise. Tomac began the discussion this morning about the Geo Revolution, talking about mapping and cartography. And, well, we talked a little bit about smart mapping, you know, taking all this mapping and cartography to the next level. Improvements in ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro now becomes a complete system for creating maps and interacting with cartographic production, moving into the whole mapping and chart production and being able to automate creation of topographic maps at different scales, and also nautical and aeronautical charts. And then we've also added something else, which is interesting. So not only are we creating individual hard copy maps, but this whole notion of digital cartography, this is actually part of what's powering the Geo Revolution. It's digital cartography, which is a whole new art and science. And underlying that is vector tiles, the ability to actually store and scale up the number of people that can actually access and use and take to the field all of these great information products that you're producing. And for those of you who are actually working in the publication world, we now have a connection to Adobe Creative Cloud. So this is like automated. You create your maps and you just submit out to the Adobe Creative Cloud. You can do your finishing and then go right to press. Pretty interesting. GIS is, and ArcGIS actually, is a full 3D GIS for visualization and analytics. So the ability now to integrate with photogrammetric data capture. Also, oblique imagery can be integrated. LiDAR and billions of points in point clouds can be used. And I mentioned about CAD and BIM being able to capture and extract meaningful information from BIM models and bring those right into GIS and go from a building information model into actually a whole city model or a country model or a whole, at a global scale, actually, integration of all this information. And so 3D is actually all the way across the platform for visualization, looking at the urban frame, also new innovations actually in virtual reality or augmented reality and new apps for that. Also bringing all this together into the urban planning frame that I talked about to create a very rich experience for geodesign, and then actually across all of our apps and runtimes in Pro, in something called ArcGIS Earth for simple visualization, and also a scene viewer using the JavaScript API where you can actually integrate this right into web applications. So ArcGIS is also a complete imagery platform. So being able to capture live imagery coming in from satellites or drones or aerial photography, to be able to create indexes for all of those, and to be able to process and disseminate on the fly in near real time. So this actually allows you to, rather than taking weeks or months, to be able to capture that imagery, deliver it in a dynamic way in minutes and hours, not days and weeks or even months. So there's something really interesting here called dynamic image services that are part of the capabilities that we're building into ArcGIS Image Server. So as you know, there are sort of these image algorithms that we used to chain together. We used to do that on a desktop system or sometimes apply it in a server in a standalone way. Well, what these image services do, and these dynamic processing chains allow us to do, is they allow us to create our analytics and our analytical chains and models, and then they become executed upon demand. So if I'm looking at this conference center, for instance, and I want to see what's going on with the vegetation around here, I can actually have a vegetation index model, and I can actually apply that, not broadly across everything, but I only want to see what's around the Congress Center, and it processes that and delivers it back to us in seconds. And this actually extends not just to image data, but also to LiDAR data. All types of imagery and sensors can be delivered in this way. Spatial analytics, of course, continues to advance. This is happening on the web. It is happening actually on the desktop. It's allowing us actually to integrate with other analytical and statistical systems like R and SAS through this, I mentioned this Python API. Also, raster and LiDAR analytics become much more performant and scalable. There's a new product. It's called Insights. It's designed for something new that we call Exploratory Analytics, the ability to tap simply into any data source and be able to visualize it using this smart mapping algorithm, and then be able to create charts and graphs and other information products and store those away and share them actually broadly with your colleagues. Also, big data spatio-temporal analytics. There's two different types, actually. One called Geo Analytics server that allows us to process many billions, actually billions and billions of records, and to do this very fast, and to do it in a distributed computing environment, to do space-time analytics and hotspots and buffering and densities. In a sense, being able to boil down your big data into little data, meaning the most important information that's really needed. Also, imagery and raster analytics also can be parallelized, meaning the computing distributed across a cluster of machines to dramatically increase the size of the problem and also the time to resolution. I mentioned about real time. This is about ingesting tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands, or actually even millions of observations per second, and being able to filter them and use them in situational awareness and create alerts, and then also store them away into a big data repository for batch analytics later to watch traffic patterns or weather patterns or all different types of patterns in real time. I guess as I begin to wrap up here, I want to talk about the fact that it's not just the applications that are out of the box. Many of you need to create more in-depth, more focused applications. And ArcGIS becomes a great platform for developers, all different languages and all different environments, both for accessing through rich APIs like the JavaScript API, using the new Python API, and also going to devices and native applications using the runtime SDKs. We'll probably see it later on throughout some of the rest of the technical presentations, but I want to bring this up. This is actually opening up all of ArcGIS into a whole new world of data analytics to enable scripting and automation. It's called the ArcGIS API for Python. And it's accessible both through individual scripts and also something called Jupyter Notebooks that allows you to interactively create these scripts and see them all from a browser. It's quite extraordinary. So this platform ends up being quite amazing. It's standards-based and compliant. And actually, being open means different things to different people. But to us, we actually look at sort of 3 different ways that we create this open and interoperable platform. First of all, we base everything on open standards and formats, like the OGC and ISO and the World Wide Web and many other industry standards. We also look to create product integration. So those of you that are running asset management systems, like with SAP, we have built-in integration with SAP HANA and other aspects of the SAP platform. Also Azure, Microsoft Azure, and other Microsoft products. The integration is built in. And finally, open data and open access to all the information that you need to deliver, either to integrate or to deliver out to your constituents. I want to talk just very briefly about the ArcGIS Online platform we call ArcGIS, this SaaS platform. It actually continues to grow at an exponential rate. It's really quite something. We create about 1 billion maps per day on this SaaS platform. It's pretty extraordinary. It actually grows. This is an older, out-of-date slide now. But there are about 15 million different maps that are contributed by our user community around the world. It's quite amazing. And then also through the Open Data app, there are over 40 million downloads of open data. Kind of interesting, don't you think? And it's all available online as a SaaS offering. I mentioned about this idea of community GIS. This is actually a new product that we're about to release. It's called Arcgis Hub. It actually is designed to sit on top of all of the enterprise data for a city, like the city of Warsaw, or the city of Los Angeles, or Paris, or New York, or Singapore. And it's specifically designed to provide open data and also to enable these community policy initiatives like Vision Zero that I talked about, or reduction of traffic, or creating a healthier society by eating better and better access to health care. And it's made to actually engage citizens and then monitor progress over time. Well, I hope you have gotten the feeling that this Geo Revolution that Tomac talked about is actually powered by you. And we at Esri are all about serving you to do your missions, to be more effective, to advance GIS and the science of where. We're strong and growing, and I can tell you that our work in supporting you is actually what inspires us to do even more. I'm going to wrap up with 2 quick ideas here, and that is professional development and the notion of lifelong learning. One of the great pleasures that I have as international director at Esri is getting to meet with all of you and understand the work that you do. It actually inspires me to learn more and do more. And actually, I hope at this conference that you use it as an opportunity to learn something new for yourself, but also help somebody else that you met earlier to learn something new as well. And then to actually take this to the next generation, building the next generation of geoscientists, of problem solvers. And so GIS Day is coming, November 15th. It's not too far away. So I really ask you to adopt a school and take to them some of the knowledge and wisdom that you have gained throughout the years and help actually create the next generation. Well, with that, I'd like to wrap up, and I'd like to thank you all for spending time with us together here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.